For over a century, Warner Brothers has been one of Hollywood's most iconic film and television studios. From the groundbreaking 1927 release of the first talkie to the adventures of Batman, the epic Lord of the Rings mythology, the DC Universe, and the wizarding world of Harry Potter. A cornerstone of the industry that first opened its doors in 1923, the WB has been at the forefront of cinematic innovation with unforgettable stories that have stood the test of time. Beyond the silver screen, they've expanded into television, animation, video games, and become a global powerhouse in entertainment. But the last several years have been a major challenge for the studio. Warner Brothers is struggling to survive. Hi everyone, it's Tim from SpaceNet TV. Warner Brothers, facing mounting financial pressure, is embarking on a new strategy, a move CEO David Zaslav hopes will ensure success at the box office, that will give him the financial resources necessary to begin to pay down WB's massive debt and fund more projects. However, the new strategy is maybe not quite as new as he thinks it is. It's the same strategy that is currently failing at Disney. Will Warner Brothers attempt at a future that relies heavily on iconic franchise, consisting mostly of sequels and prequels, with very little original content, succeed where Disney has failed? Let's talk about that. It's a little difficult to comprehend why a studio is struggling with an array of such major cinematic franchises at its disposal. Franchises like the Wizarding World, the DC Universe, Middle-earth, which is Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, the Monsterverse, which I didn't even realize was a thing until now, and even The Matrix. Until you realize where some of these franchises have already ended up going to the well one too many times, that has resulted in major losses. Fantastic Beasts, The Secret of Dumbledore, the latest offering in the Wizarding World franchise, had a $200 million production budget and only managed to earn $404 million worldwide. It needed to take in somewhere between $500 and $600 million just to break even. I'm going to say it was closer to the $600 million mark, given that it performed much better outside the U.S., where the studio cut isn't as favorable as it is domestically. Speaking of domestically, it wasn't able to break the $100 million mark here at home, which is terrible. So I would consider the Wizarding World's Fantastic Beasts franchise to have run its course. As we're all well aware, the DC Universe is in shambles, with the exception of the surprise hit of 2019's Joker, raking in $1 billion in profit. Nobody saw that coming. And 2022's The Batman turning in a reasonable 200-ish million profit. The rest of DC's universe's flicks have all been dismal failures, wiping out these profits and then some. The DC Universe is being retooled and rebooted by James Gunn. Good luck with that. So the DC Universe is a bit of a Schrodinger's cat. It could be dead, it could be alive. We won't know until we get a peek inside the box office. We haven't seen much of anything from Warner Brothers on the Lord of the Rings front, but there is an animated feature coming and promises of more things to come. Don't mess that up, Warner Brothers. As Amazon learned the hard way, the Lord of the Rings fandom is as loyal to Tolkien as it is massive and mobilized. Screw with the lore at your own peril. If you want profit, give the Tolkien fans what they want, which is things that are true and loyal to Tolkien's lore. Period. Do anything else and you'll get a backlash worse than what the Rings of Power got, and will make that look like a 12-year-old girl's birthday party. Warner Brothers owns a lot of linear broadcasting outlets. It's difficult to get detailed financial information about all of them since the WB reports them together under a single business unit. However, it's safe to say that the majority of these networks are probably unprofitable. Leading the losses is CNN, losing $400 million last year. TBS lost $150 million. Cartoon Network, $100 million. Food Network, $85 million, and so on. On the plus side, Discovery Channel and TNT have stayed profitable, earning over $200 million together. Beyond their floundering franchises and difficulties in the linear broadcasting market, WB is coping with some very serious issues. A high debt load. The WB is nearly $50 billion in debt.
What did you say?
That's billion with a B. This has made it difficult for them to invest in new projects, attract investors, and has put severe pressure on the company to cut costs, shed workers, and generate revenue to service this debt.
If you're about to tell me to look on the bright side.
Declining advertising revenue. Speaking of the linear networks, the company has seen a significant decline in advertising revenue in its linear television networks as advertisers have both reduced overall advertising spends and shifted spending to digital platforms. We just talked about the box office failures. The reality is that these theatrical releases are not generating the cash necessary to service their own debt load. In many ways, in most cases, frankly, it's simply adding to it. Direct-to-consumer competition. The streaming industry is highly competitive. Max is facing many established players and new entrants vying for the same market. It's not sustainable. It's oversaturated with competing services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Hulu, Apple TV, and a host of the new ad-supported streaming services that are playing much of the same content as what Max has on it. Consumer apathy towards paying all of these subscriptions is really very high. They bounce in and out on trials and short-term subs to watch specific shows, then dip out. Long-term subscriber retention is a problem, not just for Max, but for every streaming service. That's a nut that nobody's been able to crack. Warner Brothers consolidated its streaming offerings last year, merging Discovery Plus with HBO Max, a smart move that created a profitable unit together. However, for doing so, in reasons I cannot fathom or understand, dropped a brand name synonymous with quality and innovation for over 40 years, HBO, naming the new service simply Max, which sounds more like a feminine hygiene product. Integration challenges. The merger of Warner Media and Discovery has presented integration challenges across the board as the company works to combine its operations. This has led to layoffs across the board of up to nearly 20% of its workforce, shuttering CNN Plus just days after its launch, dumping the CW network for a no-money sale, just an assumption of its debt. That should tell you everything you need to know about the CW. And deciding to cancel or not distribute several productions, most notably Batgirl back in 2022. It was more of a decision to not further damage the Batman franchise than it was about a cost savings for distribution. There have been a few bright spots cinematically within the last year. Dune Part 2 released just this past March 1st and has dominated the box office in its first week, taking in over $384 million worldwide. This off a production budget of just $190 million. Wow, just $190 million. It's amazing how small that number sounds when it's held up against the $220 to $320 million bloated production budgets coming out of some other studios, who shall remain nameless. Dune Part 2 will need to make between $500 to $570 million to break even, but frankly, I think it should return a profit. Maybe not a gigantic one, but it at least should not lose money. Last year's breakout blockbuster Barbie scored a big hit with audiences. Sure, this was nostalgia bait and a lot of key jangling, but it worked, pulling in $1.4 billion off a production budget of just $151 million. That means that Barbie turned a healthy $1 billion profit after production, marketing, and distribution costs. This despite the fact that Barbie was a discombobulated mess that attempted to have a feminizing message that fell flat, leaving Ryan Gosling's Ken the breakout performance, completely the opposite of what director Greta Gerwig was shooting for. When David Zaslav took the helm of Warner Brothers in 2022, he promised to rescue the studio from financial ruin and rebuild the company and its iconic brands. He's already made a number of moves to execute on the studio rescue. The aforementioned combining of HBO Max and Discovery Plus into a single streaming platform, Max, still the dumbest move possible in dropping the marquee HBO name, but a smart move combining the loser Discovery Plus with HBO Max, making a relatively stable segment that allowed for consolidation of technology, personnel, and operating costs. Zaslav has promised that Max would turn profitable by the end of 2024. That remains to be seen. Zaslav has been looking for ways to reorganize the company. He's been evaluating properties, divisions, and productions in search of cost savings. He's looked at ways to compensate for the declining ad revenue in the linear broadcasting segment by focusing on a sector where advertising is still valued, sports. In addition to canceling the Batgirl movie early on, Zaslav has quietly canceled a number of other productions. Some notable examples: he canceled an animated sequel to the 2022 film Scoob Holiday Haunt. This was just a pure cost-cutting measure. Animation is not cheap. The most public cancellation, and easily the most hilarious one, was CNN Plus's streaming service. CNN Plus was shut down just a month after its launch. Warner Brothers had already sunk nearly $500 million into the streaming service when Zaslav pulled the plug, fired the staff, and nailed the door shut. Several HBO original movies that were under development were also canceled, including the anticipated adaptation of DC's The Wonder Twins. He scaled back on original programming for TNT and TBS to focus on unscripted shows, meaning reality garbage, and sports content, focusing on acquiring sports rights, including Olympic Games, PGA Golf, and English Premier League soccer. Zaslav has set about rebuilding the CNN brand following several disastrous years at the network. Zaslav replaced head executives at the network and has laid down the marching orders to take focus off the commentary and editorializing that has plagued the news service for years and pivot back to actual news reporting. It remains to be seen if this policy shift is having much success beyond firing at least one fat ass to cut down on the catering budget. So that's what Zaslav has done. But what's the plan moving forward? Well, let's say that I hope you're a big fan of Warner Brothers' existing properties and franchises, because for the foreseeable future, we won't be seeing much original ideas out of them. The new strategy moving forward for Warner Brothers is plans to lean heavily on existing franchises and properties, a series of sequels and prequels designed as a cash grab. Will this plan yield the results Zaslav hopes it will? Honestly, I don't know, but my gut is telling me no. I've walked that line with Disney the last several years, and the strategy failed hard. The public seems really tired of sequels, superhero properties or not, and the perception is that all reboots, reimaginings, and cookie-cutter sequels are all going to be trash made for the non-existent modern audience. And you know what? They're not wrong, because that is exactly what happened at Disney, and it yielded negative results. It lost money, it damaged properties, it damaged intellectual property, and it is still a strategy they're trying to ramp up now. I fail to see why Zaslav believes this is a strategy that will work for Warner Brothers, where it has failed so dismally for Disney. In all honesty, I find it highly unlikely that Warner Brothers will survive, at least not in its modern configuration. They're too heavily in debt, they're losing too much money from underperforming theatrical releases, most notably the last several DC Universe films, and carrying around such a gaggle of unprofitable linear broadcast networks. And if, and this is a big if, they can keep enough subscribers to make Max profitable, it will barely keep itself afloat, let alone carry the rest of the company. Restarting the DC Universe with James Gunn is a risky proposition. An ambitious 10-year plan to retool, recast, and reimagine all of DC's superhero properties. When the move was conceived a couple of years ago, it seemed like perhaps it was a good play. Gunn was coming off successful Guardians movies, and it seemed as if he might be the right man to put DC back on track. However, thanks in part to their own dismal DC movies in the run-up to Gunn taking over, and with help from Marvel's recent numerous disasters, superhero fatigue is a very real thing. Worse, bad superhero fatigue is a major problem. So if Gunn pulls a real rabbit out of his hat with the first movie in line, Superman Legacy, and let's face it, the questionable casting and Gunn's own statements of the direction he plans to take doesn't fill anyone with a lot of confidence. It still may not perform well at the box office, even if it is done right, when it releases in, I think, summer of 2025. As the saying goes, it takes 10 attaboys to make up for one F-up. What will it take to make up for 6, 8, 10 F-ups? Superman Legacy had better be the best goddamn Superman movie ever made. It better not have any multiverses, time travel, Superman gone bad bullshit. It had better show Superman as the heroic figure he has always been known to be, the one the fans want. Because if Superman Legacy falters or flops, the entire 10-year plan will be circling the drain, and the WB will not be far behind it. Warner Brothers is banking on the next installment of the MonsterVerse franchise, Godzilla and King Kong, The New Empire, that drops the end of this month, March, to be a big success. The Godzilla movies have been good performers for the WB, earning nearly $2 billion worldwide as a franchise. However, how many times can you go to this well? Godzilla and Kong will resonate well with the fans of the genre, but may have a difficult time finding a wide audience. Honestly, it looks a little silly. And what's with the $6 million Kong and the bionic arm? Do the Infinity Stones fit into that thing too? With a production budget topping $200 million, it will take nearly $600 million just to break even. Given that 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong total global box office was less than $500 million, I'm not certain that the new empire is going to have the legs to make much of a profit, if any at all. The next up is a bit of a wild pitch. It's a Mad Max movie without Mad Max. It's a prequel based on a character, Furiosa, a girl boss Mad Max movie no one ever asked for. The production budget is over $230 million, and I'm sure that is going to doom it at the box office, needing to do well over $600 million worldwide just to break even. The last of the biggest hope for Warner Brothers this year is Joker 2. The first Joker was a surprise, huge hit that made over $1 billion on a budget of basically change found in Zaslav's office couch. I don't think Joker 2 is going to be able to recapture that magic and repeat it. First, its production budget has ballooned to over $200 million, and apparently it's a musical now? I'm not sure who this is being made for, and I think it isn't likely to break the $500 to $600 million threshold necessary to break even. I don't think, given this ballooned budget, it's going to be able to capture the indie feel that was Joker that made it so endearing. On the streaming side, a lot is riding on Season 2 of House of Dragon on Max. Season 1 was surprisingly awesome and started a redemption process for the Game of Thrones disastrous final 2 seasons. Let's hope Season 2 continues to build on that. Max, like every other streaming service, suffers from a lack of subscriber retention. An 8 to 10 episode run of House of Dragon may draw in some subscribers for that specific series, but there better be something coming right on the horizon after it if they expect to hold that audience. And frankly, I don't think there is, unless there's something they're not telling us. Last, but far from the least, is the WB's top priority, a massively anticipated multi-year retelling of the Harry Potter saga, slated for 7 or 8 seasons over 10 years, basically a season per book. This is a huge investment for Warner Brothers, but if it works, this could remake the entire landscape of Max and change things for Warner Brothers.
From this day forth, you put your faith in me.
If it falters, if it fails, if it winds up being DEI-leaning reimagining for modern audiences, it will flush the Warner Brothers down the toilet. There's a lot riding on the next couple of years for Warner Brothers and David Zaslav. Zaslav will either be the hero that saved the storied movie studio or the man who rode it into the ground. No one's crystal ball can predict exactly how it's going to go, but I'm not sold on a strategy of promising more of the same. More sequels and prequels on franchises that are already growing old and fatigued. Disney has been down this road for the last couple of years. Live action remakes, reimagined classics, and very little original content. It's been disastrous for them. I fail to see why Warner Brothers will fare any better with the same strategy. I guess time will tell. One thing's for sure, this is a Hail Mary pass that better find the end zone for the WB. Anyway, that's how I see it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be back real soon with another video. Until then, you take care. Bye for now.